Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and a couple of holiday cards using all, mostly, except for the sentiment sets, oldie but goodie favorites. And I was very much channeling Laura Basson, which if you don't already follow her, I'll put a link to her YouTube channel in the description box below the video. Laura Fedora, fabulous. Another queen of clean and simple cards. Her style is just so good. And her little jingles and, she's just a hoot to listen to. So if you don't already follow her, get on that. And yeah, I was definitely channeling her when I made these cards, but I still put my own little spin on it, aka splatter, So, as always, I will post links to all the supplies I used in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keeps the heater running and the channel going. And then at the very end of the video, in the end screen, I'll post a link to my 2024 holiday card series that I'll just keep adding to as I get these cards made and videos posted. That's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into the card making. So again, if you follow Laura Basson, you'll be very familiar. She likes to strip it up. Yep. She does. She really does. And she'll just, take these paper strips and make like the bestest little cards. So I grabbed a whole bunch of Simon Says Stamp cardstocks. I will have all of these specific colors listed and linked below. I've got Doll Pink, Lipstick Red, Schoolhouse Red, Orange Peel, Bright Yellow, Green Leaf, Apple Green, or Green Apple, Peacock, Blue Violet, and Sea Glass. And I just used my guillotine trimmer and just randomly trimmed off little strips. Wasn't measuring, was literally flying by the seat of my pants when I was doing this because I had a rough idea in my head. I was like, I've seen Laura do this and I love it. And I was like, I want like a rainbow stripe background. So after I had gone through and just trimmed off all these strips of cardstock, I separated them into two piles because I've got enough to do 2 sets of these because why not? So once I separated them, so 1 strip of color per little pile here, I grabbed some copy paper, like just printer paper, thin printer paper, because I had an idea of wanting to emboss these. And so I wanted to adhere them to copy paper to do this because I'm using, like I said, Simon's like original cardstock, which all of this cardstock is like 100 pound. So it's a heavyweight cardstock. And I want something thin to adhere all these strips to because I'm going to run them through a 3D embossing folder. And I was concerned that if I adhere these directly to the white cardstock panel I plan on using, that it would be just too heavy to run through. And I was worried I would like wreck my embossing folder. So it still might have worked, but I would rather just play it safe. So I took copy paper and cut it in half again. So I've got a A2 size panel. And like I said, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I'll just adhere them in like rainbow order, adhere them at an angle. I put, just some dot runner adhesive on the back of this panel. I rarely work with adhesive like this. I prefer liquid adhesive, but this was quicker and easier, because I just need it to hold the strips in place. And on this first one, this was the amount of colors I wanted to use, just because I wanted like a blocked off, area of these strips. And then I ended up trimming this panel down a bit to like roughly like 4 by 5.25. No rhyme or reason with that. There was no need to do that, but I get old habits and I just started like trimming it down as if it was done. And I was like, wait, no. So I'll make it work. It's fine. So I repeated the process on the second panel. This time, kind of knowing exactly what order I'm going in. I'm kind of going in basically rainbow order. And this one I can fit more colors on because some of these little strips are narrower. So you could keep things a little matchy and cut everything more, evenly, more consistently. But this also kind of made it fun because I was like, oh, I can squeeze in, a couple more colors here. Why not? So did the exact same thing, got them all on there, and then trim this down to the exact same size. So 4 by 5 1/4. And then I just use my scissors to trim off that excess copy paper because I don't need that. Plus any of the exposed adhesive, I didn't want that getting pressed into, my embossing folder. So I just trim that off. So I've got these 2 little panels of these strips of cardstock. And I'm going to run these through my embossing folder. And this is Simon Says Stamps Cheery Snowflakes embossing folder. I think this came out last year. Any of them will work. Even the one I'm about to use would work as well. But I wanted this one because it had, some more small snowflakes. So I ran the panel through with that, and it worked like a treat. So they're all embossed on there. Love it. It's so cute. And I was super happy because I was like, I think this is going to work. So did the exact same thing. I lined up, and I purposely, I lined up those strips of cardstock exactly how they're going to go on the background, which is going to be white cardstock. So you could just adhere it like so and go on. But I wanted to emboss the white cardstock as well. And this is the white cardstock I use most of the time, which is Simon's 120-pound smooth white. So this was why I didn't adhere those paper strips to this cardstock, because that would be so thick. And like I said, I was worried that it would be too thick to properly emboss and potentially burst the embossing folder. These embossing folders, you can emboss watercolor paper, things like that. But sometimes I would rather not push my luck because I tend to do things and then it just doesn't turn out. Or I break things, So this just worked. And because I had lined up the panel with the paper strips, where it needed to be, it just fits. It just kind of clicked into place on the background, which is just ridiculously satisfying. So I put craft tacky glue on the back, and then it just fit. You could literally feel it click into place. So like I said, it's just satisfying. It's just girly things, So, and you can see that because I trimmed down the rainbow stripe piece, because I wasn't thinking straight, it doesn't fully cover this panel, but that's okay because I was going to trim this down anyway. So I got them adhered first, then I trimmed these panels down. I kind of started it a little more conservatively at first and just taking a little bit off just to, clean everything up. But I ended up trimming it down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So that way my card base is going to frame this up a little bit and it just works. So the thing to remember also, this Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer has no problem cutting through multiple layers. You just got to be a little careful when you're cutting through multiple layers of very heavyweight cardstock. And look at it, how the pattern's just seamless. Love it. Love how that turned out. That was fun. But yeah, you just want to be kind of aware. It will cut through. Just be aware, because you're having to apply more pressure, and the edges of this trimmer are not sharp in that sense because it cuts by metal against metal. But yeah, when you're cutting through thicker layers, just pay attention, aka don't be like me with your mind off somewhere else and you end up pinching your fingers or something. So after I had got my backgrounds, I pulled out another embossing folder. This was the Glistening Snowflakes embossing folder that comes with a snowflake die. I used just the wafer die, not the folder for this. But as of doing this voiceover, this embossing folder and die set is on sale. So check it out while supplies last. It's while the sale lasts. I just noticed it. But the other thing is I used this embossing folder and this snowflake wafer die last year, the year before, something. I made a ton of cards with it. I love it. It's so pretty. So anyway, I only used just the little snowflake die, or big. This snowflake's enormous. And I die cut it from white cardstock, and then I die cut it from Simon's gold glitter cardstock. And then I adhered them together, and then adhered them to my background with the glue just in the very center there. So all of the little ends of these die cuts kind of pop up a bit, so it just gives it a little bit of extra dimension. And then, of course, I was going to add splatter. Could totally leave it. Looks great, but you guys know me. I like my splatter. So I'm using some black soot distress paint. Put a little bit of it on my palette, and I've got my little splat box. And this time I'm just using a little Royal and Langnickel Zen regular brush, not my fan brush, because I didn't want to add a ton of splatter, which I know is saying something for me. I just wanted to add a bit, just a little bit, So splattered that onto both of these card fronts and then immediately cleaned off my brush because black soot distress paint will dry permanently. It'll ruin your brush if you don't clean it out. So cleaned off my brush, wiped off the paint off my little palette, and then I pulled out my Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors. And I'm using the gold pan, and I'd added water to it and swirled it around really good with my brush, and then added a bit of gold splatter too. Because, you know, when in Rome, might as well go all out and add two kinds of splatter. Two is better than one. So splatter that onto both of these card fronts as well. So I've got the black splatter and then the shimmery gold. Lovely. And had to add a bit more water to my pan there. There we go. And then I can splatter that onto this one as well. And on the first one there, I had, you know, strategically, and this one too, like strategically added, you know, little bigger splotches, just using the brush to like paint bigger bits of splatter on there, just cause. So after I did all my splattering, for the sentiments, I'm using the Holiday Messages set, which I've used in a previous video or two, and this is a newer one. And I'm just using the Joy word, and I had a piece of black cardstock, and I used my anti-static powder tool on the areas where I was going to stamp, and then I'm inking up the stamp and inking it up and stamping it multiple times with clear embossing ink. I've talked about this quite a bit, especially with like larger sentiments like this or anything that has larger solid areas. I find that stamping it, like inking it up and stamping it multiple times with clear embossing ink, you get more coverage of the ink, more layers of that sticky ink for the embossing powder to cling to, and then you just get better results. So I coated it with detail white embossing powder, tapped off the excess, melted it with my heat tool, let it cool off for a minute, and then removed that excess anti-static powder with my microfiber cloth. And then use the coordinating wafer die to die cut it. And then off camera, I'd also stamped and heat embossed the Christmas word from that same stamp set. And then I just trimmed it down with my paper trimmer into 2 little sentiment strips. And then to adhere these to my card fronts, I'm using some thin black foam squares. So I stuck that on the back of the die cut word and then popped that right in the middle of this snowflake. And then the little Christmas sentiment, I put the little foam squares on the back of that one as well, and then popped that onto there. So it just worked, you know? These cards just came together. It's so satisfying when that happens. Trust me, in a lot of my videos, even though everything looks seamless, like I always say, it's the magic of video editing. Because, boy, things do not just flow seamlessly, almost never. You know, it's like multiple sessions and chaos and me breaking things and spilling things. And, you know, life is what it is. Anyway, for the insides of my cards, again, channeling Laura Basson, I am using a cream card base. My card base will be a top folding A2 card, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And on the inside, I'm stamping this big sentiment from a small set, because it's just the sentiment. This is the Merry Everything stamp. So I stamped that on the inside with black ink. And then my card front, I'm going to adhere with some Big Mama foam tape to pop it up, give it a bit of dimension. And because the card base is cream, that cream cardstock just kind of frames it. Again, this is very Laura Basson. And pop the card front into place. And then as my final bit of embellishment, I'm going to use some of Simon's Pawsitively Dazzling Gems. And I'm just showing here, the ones on the left are the butter color. The ones on the right are called gold. Totally different. The gold ones I would consider more of like either a champagne or a rose gold sort of a tone, like very warm. And the butter color is more like yellow gold. So I used the butter Pawsitively Dazzling Gems because that went more with like this gold glitter paper. But I had them both pulled out, so I thought I would just show that so you could see the difference. And I put some of these onto my card front and then just picked them up with my little embellishment wand and adhered them into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And then I just got to let the glue dry, and these cards are complete. So I've got rainbow stripes all embossed with that little embossing folder. Love it. Love how that turned out. That was fun. And then my big sparkly snowflake and just the, graphic sentiment, black and white. Gotta have the splatter, gotta have the bling, all the fun things. And like I mentioned, I'll have links to everything I used in the description box below the video, and then my playlist linked at the very end for anyone who wants to check it out. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me today, for thumbs upping and commenting. I appreciate you all a ton, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!